Well, welcome back, guys, and we've got a fantastic interview coming up now. It's one that I'm very excited about, and I'm sure that it's going through and interviewing our next guest, I'm going to be learning a few things on top of what you guys are going to be learning. It is my genuine pleasure and delight to be able to introduce you to David Murray-Hundley.
Hi guys, how you doing? I'm David Murray-Hundley, the Grumpy Entrepreneur.
Welcome. Well, David, should we start off with, do you want to tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Oh wow, okay. So what do? Today I'm chairman on a few companies, I'm non-exec on a few companies, I'm advisor on a few companies. My previous background, I was a technology guy that got very, very lucky. And my big thing was in 1999 for the dot-com boom. I was part of the founding team for a company called Commerce One, and we were the biggest stock on NASDAQ for e-commerce, and I was 24 years of age. And then I failed.
Then you failed. Interesting. Do you know what? It's interesting you say then you failed, because I don't know about you, but certainly for me, every time I fail, I bounce up stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I went bankrupt in quite a big public way, but actually it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So it was kind of probably viewed in court as failure, but for me it was actually something that needed to happen. So it's good for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start off. Let's start off with, what does mentoring mean to you?
So I have a real kind of clear view on this, right? So I think mentoring is about a lifetime thing, potentially, as opposed to advisory. So people get mixed up where they think advisory is the same thing, and it's absolutely not. Advisory is very much you may be part of a business, advising CEO or the founders as a safe haven, and it's a particular timeline, okay, or a particular growth part of that business. Whereas mentoring for me is you're around someone's life probably from point one until they're old and grey. So if I look at my own experience of that, I've had the same mentors around me pretty much all the time, and it's not unified time either. Okay, it's kind of, they come in and out of your life. So they'll talk to you about your personal life, your business life. They want to do stuff with you. Mentors for me have always ended up being friends. I've got a guy I mentored since he was 22, and he's now godfather to my daughter. And so I don't mentor him in the same way, but he uses me still to kind of bounce stuff off, etc. So I think it's a very personal thing, and I think there's a lot of people who look at profiles on people and think that's how you match it, and it's not. It's about how you actually get on, because in my experience, they're going to say stuff that you probably don't want to hear sometimes. I know I've had it done to me, and it's that's a tough one, right? Certainly when you're maybe less experienced.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but certainly there's a lot come up throughout this whole conference, but certainly in terms of when we do our training as well, about talking about someone that's walked the walk.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get quite frustrated. Back in 1995, many hundreds of years ago, if I'd been looking for a mentor, you wouldn't have been able to go. It would have been quite a difficult task, okay? And I happen to have people that, kind of took me under their wing to a certain extent, okay? Whereas, now you go and put mentor into Google or in LinkedIn or Twitter, and it's like everyone's a mentor.
Yeah.
It drives me absolutely bonkers, because most of the mentors I meet, and this is not disrespectful of their experience, they've generally never done certain things. So they'll be mentoring some young entrepreneur like I used to be. They've never built a business, never gone through the startup space, and it's not about reading process, it's not about reading books. This is a very tough gig, actually. And I think it's really important that if someone's out there looking at having a mentor, finding those people that have the experience that's kind of what they're looking for, not maybe today, but maybe in 5 years' time or whatever. But I also think, those guys will warm towards you as well.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's something, and it's part of the reason that I founded the mentoring school, for precisely that reason, to try and put some rigor and some standards into mentoring. Say this is the baseline for what a mentor is.
Yeah, and I think people have got unique ways of doing things. So my way of mentoring, with most of the people I've mentored, I've generally taken them to the pub. So, because that's kind of, a nice barriers down, etc. type of thing. And then you throw a few pints down them and then, they'll agree to anything. But, some people have process. You generally know, it's for me, it's about like doing business. I do business for people. So I get asked to mentor a lot of people and I turn a lot of stuff down because it's not the right dynamics, and you kind of get good at knowing what is the right dynamics. And so, hopefully there's that person as well. It's a very noisy space at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And there are, there are some fantastic examples of mentoring out there. But likewise, sometimes, and I don't know how you feel, but sometimes it does feel like the world and his wife calls themselves a mentor.
Well, there's that, and I think there's some that also damage the reputation a bit. So I meet a lot of young entrepreneurs, because they're probably ones that have been maybe seeking out mentorship a little bit more than maybe your entrepreneur or business owner at the age of like kind of mid-30s onwards, right? And what you see is some of them are damaged. Like, it's been such a bad experience. They have this like negative vibe about it. And I can absolutely understand why, there's been certain reasons why. And I think that, there is you go to a networking event and you could probably not wear a name badge and go and introduce yourself to everyone, and everyone will say, well, I also mentor people. And, we've had accelerators and incubators, which have been, I'm not going to say terrible, what I just did. They are so bad at going, right, we need a list of mentors. Let's go blanket it, right? Because we cover every single skill possible. And so what happens is that then creates like this new effect into some other thing that's going on, whether it's another incubator or accelerator. And you can literally sometimes look at profiles on people and go, wow, you're like a professional mentor who's never actually done a job.
Yeah. I can see what you mean. I can understand that. So is there a particular mentor that's really made a difference to you?
So I've probably had 3 in my entire career, let's say professional career. So I had a guy called Kevin Doyle, who was kind of my first boss at Chase. He took me under his wing. I had another guy called John Sofield at Commerce One, who's now Google. He's like my big brother. So that's how it's great, because it goes from being him kind of keeping an eye on me and kind of seeing my potential to actually he's like a family friend, but he still today would mentor me. And I was very fortunate enough in 2010 when I won an award with LinkedIn that I got Reid Hoffman as a mentor. Which is pretty cool. I still remember the first conversation very well. You're like, wow, you're Reid Hoffman. And when he says he doesn't know what he's going to teach you, that's kind of like, really? Wow, okay, it's late. But I've been really lucky. But those people I've kept the same people around for 20 years, actually, in one case.
Do you think, because one of the things that's cropped up a few times throughout our interviews is people talking about outgrowing them or their mentee outgrowing them, and so therefore signposting to another mentor for the next part of the journey. Is that something you'd subscribe to?
I guess, I haven't had it personally, I'd say, and my life is definitely very different. If I take the mentor from 20 years ago, my life is extremely different. I'm a very different individual. I actually listen now, which I didn't do in my 20s. And that hasn't happened to me. I guess it does go up through waves. I don't need to speak. Like John Sofield, I saw a couple of months ago, and I probably haven't communicated with him since, sort of thing. But I'll speak to him again. It's like having a really good friend. You don't need to speak to them all the time, right? Because there's the balance and there's the relationship there. I guess for some people, is that they may look at it in a slightly more constructive fashion and go, right, no, I'm in this part of my life. I need this mentor, and actually, they'll still be around, but I need this person to execute this next bit. I guess I can understand that. You know, I never worked in a very process-driven way. I just kind of got on with it, and kind of where I ended up. So, you know, I can see that, you know, some people might do.
Yeah. And I mean, you've obviously gone through an awful lot in your journey. Now, particularly, you know, I mean, going bankrupt very, very publicly, for example. Obviously, I can only begin to imagine what that felt like at the time. But have you found that it's affected the way that you mentor others?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was really, really lucky to have the success that I had in my 20s. I was like very fortunate, and I was very fortunate to have those amazing things happen, but also mess it up. And I know that sounds completely crazy, but I even remember telling the judge the day he bankrupted me that it was actually a good thing, because it kind of lets you not only wipe the slate clean, but it also lets you kind of go reflect, you know. And the best things is never make those mistakes again. And you know, we all make mistakes, right? You know, we're humans, and even mentors. Yeah, no one's perfect. So yeah, no, absolutely. And what it's actually probably allowed me to do is I can almost predict what's going to happen with someone. Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether I'm in a business, in an advisory role, or a mentor role with someone personally. I can very much go, oh yeah, I did that. So you see signals. And you also know what it's like to kind of have mentor success, because everyone thinks it's amazing and it's not. You know, I can actually say that it was probably at that point one of the loneliest parts of my life as an entrepreneur, and most unhappiest. But it allows you to also go, you see that you can kind of mentor people through that, but also if they are having negative stuff happen, you go, absolutely get it, know the feeling, here's what I would do. And you know, that's a unique thing. Not many people go bust, right? So, and that's the reality of doing business as an entrepreneur. You're probably going to have a few downfalls. So, yeah, no, I absolutely use it all the time. And the great thing about being an older guy now is that you can kind of reflect a lot better. And you know, you kind of feel in a way, if there's anything you can do to pay back, is actually help people through that patch.
Yeah. And is just out of interest, is that the period of your life that the phrase "the grumpy entrepreneur" came from?
No, that actually came later. I was probably just the mad, crazy maverick entrepreneur then. No, I've calmed down a lot. So it was no. My wife gave me the name back in 2012 when I was becoming a little frustrated with the startup scene, because it has become a lot easier to be an entrepreneur. It's become a lot easier to have businesses. And sometimes I get frustrated by the quality, but the lack of, there's too much information out there as well. There's like information overload. So and also I'm getting old. And as you get older, you just become a grumpy old man.
Now, in terms of the mentoring that you do, what common themes do you see? What's the stand out at you?
So I see stuff that I see that in my previous history, right? Mm-hmm. So people don't really listen. So they want to be mentored, but they don't always like the answer you're going to give them. And that's a real tough one, right? That's why that relationship between a mentor and the mentee is actually really important, because you're going to say stuff that's just going to drive them nuts. You know, it's almost like a family member telling you. So I see a lot of that. I see a lot of it to do, interestingly enough, we were talking about earlier, confidence. So, you know, I look back at how I was, everyone thinks I was this crazy guy with loads of confidence in my 20s, and I wasn't. That was all my kind of products that I came out there with to kind of cover the fact that I had no confidence. So I see a lot of that, where people are very good, they just don't realize how good they are. And you need that person to get that out of you and show what you know, to be a superstar. I see, obviously we've talked about the noise in the space. I see a lot of mentees looking too much at people's bios in terms of job roles, etc., and not going, actually, what do I need? So a lot of the conversations I have is I go, oh, can you mentor me, David? Right? And I'm like, yeah, got lots of stuff going on. Not sure if I can. What do you actually need out of this? Right? And they don't need to give 100% answer, but they need to kind of know why. And I think what we've created is this: you must have a mentor.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. And I don't think that's true. Yeah. Your mentor might be your father or your mother. Yeah. Frankly, or your brother. But there is this thing that you have to have one to be successful. And I don't necessarily agree with that at all. And I think there is I see a lot of people try too hard with mentors. And I always say, just be yourself. If I look at everyone I've mentored, the first thing when I take them down the path is you understand what drives them, and not just drives them in business, but personally. Yeah, because you put it in your data bank and you remember, and you bring it out 5 years down the line or 5 months down the line. And I think there's a lot of, I must be the next, Bill Gates. And it's like, guys, just be who you are. And I see a lot of that in the space anyway, in general, where I think actually just be you. People don't like it. Tough. Get over it.
Absolutely. And what who do you generally end up mentoring? Do you end up mentoring startups, more established owners, or?
It really varies. So I've got one guy at the moment, a guy called Daniel, who I met at a Young Enterprise finals for their competition, and he was 17, and he pitched better to me than I've seen most more mature people pitch. And I knew there was something in him, so I've kind of mentored him via university. He decided he wanted to be a banker. He's now decided he's going to have a startup. So they don't always listen. So there's people like that you just go, there's some talent there. I've done it with other individuals where it's, if I look at Richard, where he was kind of almost forced upon me by the company, and he's now godfather to my daughter. And it was kind of like, really, I have to do this sort of thing. So it varies, and I end up mentoring startups. The trouble with mentoring startups is it's time more than anything. I kind of have other stuff to do, and I probably get 10 emails a day, people asking me to mentor them. And I'd love to be able to do that, but I can't because there's the real world out there for me as well. So yeah, no, it varies. I mean, if I look at the moment, I'm mentoring. He's become a good friend, and I'm involved with the business. But I'm mentoring a chap who's in his 50s, very corporate, C-level type guy who's now doing a startup and doing brilliantly. But he said, I've never done this before. And yet, you know what? He can go and work for the big FMCG guys, and he's absolutely awesome. And he's doing an awesome job at the startup. I'm not convinced he actually needs any mentoring. But yeah, so it really varies. Really varies.
Yeah, I can hear. Are there any particular stories with your mentees that stand out to you as a big success story?
So Richard's a really good one for me because he was forced upon me. He won't mind me saying this. I really didn't want to mentor him. And I did. And he was working on a help desk at quite a large company in the UK. And I was actually meant to mentor him to be a project manager. And this particular company had a 2-year program. So I took him to the pub. He was all very formal because he was trying very hard. And one of the things I loved about it, I said, well, we're not going to do the 2-year thing because we don't do that. You've got 2 months, actually. And I've watched him go through this career ladder, become this different person. His confidence was rock bottom when I met him. And he's turned out to be a jolly good individual. He's smashing it in the business world. He's doing the dreams that he wanted to do as well. And that feels amazing. So I think for me, I've been around some businesses where you've watched them just go from this particular type of individual. You want to see everyone do well, whether it's in a personal life or business life. I mean, that's ultimately kind of why I do it, because people did it for the same reasons for me. So, I mean, really, I helped someone a few weeks ago that was having issues in their business, and I've probably spoke to them twice, but, I got a nice email from them going, thank you. And, it's about those ones who recognize that actually you had this impact in probably a 20-minute phone call that would have taken them months to kind of figure out. That's kind of cool, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Certainly for me, that really makes the difference. It's when you get that feedback, when your mentee recognizes where they've got to.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't forget, and I always say you'll be part of their life for as long as, as long as they choose it to be. And so, it's great. I've watched people over, some of the people I've mentored now, I'm probably 12 years in with, gee, that makes me sound really old, but it's kind of cool to go, I've seen them get married. I'm going to see them have kids. I've seen them do this. I've seen their career do this. I've seen them have the downtimes as well, right? The thing about being a mentor, you have to deal with the bad stuff as well, right? When, I remember back when I was completely in my lunatic stage of life and didn't listen to anyone, there was no one could control me. No one could tell me anything. And people didn't go, well, leave him to it. They went, we'll be here when he realizes that he's a lunatic.
Yeah, so true. So true, and thank you for that. Unfortunately, time's getting away with us, so I'm going to need to ask my final question. But this is absolutely great. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, I have to say. Now, what do you think the future of mentoring is?
Ooh. So, I think it will become a little bit more noisy, okay, and then I wouldn't be surprised if we have a reshift in certainly the startup world, like we did in 2000 with the bubble bursting with .com boom, that suddenly there isn't the supply there. So people go, oh yeah, I don't do really mentoring anymore. I'm now doing this job. So I think that might happen. I think there will be some people out there that go, oh, I know, some crazy guy go, let's get artificial intelligence to figure out mentoring people. Which is a lovely thought, and I no doubt will happen at some point, but that's going to be some time away because it's a very personal thing, and you can argue everything about emotions with AI, but it comes down to a lot of that personal stuff. And I think there will be those who try and almost package it up. It's a bit like we've done with law for startups. We've tried to package it so it's not this big complex thing, which I think for law is brilliant, okay, for raising money and stuff. But mentoring is, yes, there's certain checklists, yes, there's certain processes you can do, but you tell me when it's ever gone exactly the same for someone else, right? One doesn't fit all. But I would like to see, where people are using it as a more formal process kind of achievement, that it was governed a little bit more. I do worry that there's some mentors mentoring people with companies that are, there's some elements of risk and they're giving bad advice, and that bad advice is then going into that business and guiding that business, which is where the cross with the advisor mentor thing is. And, that company has a bad time and that mentor kind of walks away scot-free. So I do have a little bit of an issue with that, and I see that quite a lot. But, hopefully on the plus side as well is that, there can be some way of harnessing all this information and all these techniques and these ways of dealing with people that, someone out there is starting out, or someone who's, got a challenge at the moment can go and plug into it and at least have a first step in terms of what they need and knowledge. Absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, David. I have to say, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, if anyone wants to find out more about you, get in touch, how do they do that? So my Twitter handle is at The Grumpy E, and my website is thegrumpyentrepreneur.com, and I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find in general. Yeah, it's just a Google away. Excellent. Well, David, time has got to run away with us, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. You as well. Cheers. Lovely.